a new video. We're going to be taking a look at a deck that I've been messing around with a good bit lately, trying to get to work. I think it's really fun. I'm not saying it's competitively viable. Now, you might be going to a local game shop and you may have invested big time in some decks, and you might, like me, be able to play Boba Yellow or Boba Green or Vader Green or Sabine Green, or you might just be sick of playing Energy Conversion Lab and you want to play something else. Or also, like me, yes, your local game shop is pretty competitive, but after you get done playing that deck, you would like to play something that's just fun and lighthearted. Hey, pull out the deck that you didn't find on a meta list, my friend, somewhere, and let's just play those decks together. Let's play B tier or C tier or F tier leaders, and let's just play. The other experience that you might have, which is on my online community at our online church, is I have a lot of people who are buying into the game, but they're just maybe getting the 2-player kit and a couple of other packs. They might just be getting a couple of pre-release kits, or they might be buying a singular booster box. They're not going to have 3 of all of the legendaries, and it can be really discouraging to go up against Vader with 3 legendary Vader cards and all of the tricks and the expensive things in it. And eventually, players don't really want to keep playing the game if they feel like they can't compete or have any fun. And for the last couple of weeks, well, I've been bringing meta decks to my webcam games with friends, and it hasn't been all that fun for them. So I wanted to come up with a deck that would be fun for me to play, that wouldn't be totally awful or garbage, but would also not be completely meta. Something that I feel like I could bring to somebody's house who doesn't own a ton of cards, and their deck that they have thrown together from their pre-release kits in a box, I could throw together my deck with whatever it is that I've pulled together and play maybe a subpar leader. Or after we got done playing competitively in a constructed event at my local game shop, I could bust this thing out and say, hey, who wants to try out that IG-88 deck? Or who wants to try out that Cassian Andor deck that they've been working and tweaking? One of the other things and the reasons that I made this deck is because I, like many people, have loved Star Wars Rebels, and I've wanted to play with Hera since the moment I saw her in the game. And a lot of other people have as well. In fact, most of my friends that have been casual players, the first deck that they've thought about playing was Hera, because they have an affectionate place in their hearts for Hera from watching Star Wars Rebels. And unfortunately, Hera has largely been absolutely garbage. And so I decided to make a Hera deck that was unique and fun, based around a couple of cards, and we're going to go over them today. I'm going to show you each of the cards in the deck, and I'm going to tell you why from my desktop, why I have them in there, and what my thought was. Then we'll go over a full deck list, and then I'll give you a couple of additional thoughts or recommendations of cards that you also might want to toss in. Okay, with all of that being said, let's go to the tabletop and let's talk about, first off, our leader and our base here. Let me go ahead and get this situated. Okay, so first off, Hera is who we're going to be using as our leader. Hera's ability is that she can ignore the icons on units with Spectre. Now, Spectre units are relegated pretty much to all of the people that you would see on the Rebels show, but they also have one additional event, which is going to be in this deck, and you'll see why. So you can ignore those icons on them, and you can play them sort of off synergy from your base and your leader. I wanted to make the absolute most of that. I think that you need to make the absolute most of that, because otherwise, Hera's kind of garbage. She doesn't have any abilities, she doesn't flip until 6, and when she flips at 6, she's a 4/6 that doesn't do anything initially. She has to attack first, and when she attacks, she just gives out an XP, a +1/+1 to a unique unit. She's not all that strong. Now, you get Ghost out with her, which is also in this deck, and you'll see she's a little bit stronger, but at 6, with just a 4/6, not super powerful, gets cleared by most of the other leaders in the game, and she doesn't have an active ability that you can use throughout the game, which does race you to taking initiative a little bit faster in most cases, but also she just doesn't have a lot of power. I went ahead with Kestra's City, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to be playing a couple of very specific red cards in this deck, and I'm going to be spreading out to a couple of very specific Spectre units that I didn't want to kind of put my base in for those. There's a couple of really specific cards. I wanted to be able to have a little bit of control, and really in this game, Vigilance Blue and Aggression Red are going to have your most control tools in terms of direct damage and stuff. I wanted to have a couple of those tools, and there's a really specific card that I wanted to play in this deck. There's Aggression only. Now, the reason that I wanted to play that card is because I think there's a trap with Hera. You see, Hera has I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Spectre units that you can put in. And so you have Chopper, you have Sabine, you have Ezra Bridger, you have Kanan Jarrus, and then at the very top end, you have a 5-drop whose name I can never remember. It starts with a Z. And I think the 2 on the and then Ghost at the very end. I think that the 5-drop and the 1-drop, they have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think the 1-drop and the 5-drop are absolute traps when it comes to your Hera deck. So I decided not to include those, which means I needed to make sure I could get an Ezra, Kanan, Sabine, and Ghost for my deck. And I really didn't really want to then incorporate blue or yellow. I could have gone with blue. We could have gone with a blue base here, and I think maybe the blue named base, the rare base, would have been good in this scenario. But I really specifically wanted to take advantage of this card right here. This card is called Force Throw. It is a 1-cost event that says choose a player. That player discards a card from their hand. If you control a force unit, you may deal damage to a unit equal to the cost of the discarded card. I really want to take advantage of this because Hera has the ability to play 2 of the best early game force users in the game in the form of both Ezra and Kanan. And because they both have the force keyword, I was like, I'd really like to get them down and use Force Throw, which is an incredibly powerful card as you can target yourself or your opponent. You can be discarding cards from your opponent's hand, which seemed to go really well with one of the Spectre cards that I could play completely off aspect, which is Spark of Rebellion, our Spectre event. This is a 2-cost card that just says look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it. And you can kind of see where we're going with this deck. I'm trying to make a discard strategy around Hera using force users, specifically trying to exploit the fact that I can play Force Throw alongside of both Kanan and Ezra early in the game. And so let's go over some of the cards that are in the deck. Specifically, let's go over the different ground units that I have in the deck. We're going to go ahead and just slide Hera up here for now and put her aside. Let's take a look. Now you'll notice that I'm playing a lot of the package that you're going to see in the typical Sabine deck with a couple of adjustments. And the reason for that is ultimately we're playing green-red, command aggression, and there's a lot of very good rebel cards in green-red. So specifically, I'm running 2 copies of Mon Mothma in this deck. I really like Mon Mothma. At a 2-drop, turn 1 play, she's a 1/3, which is arguably very terrible in this game. However, she does look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put a Rebel in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom. This lets you early game get to your Ezra and your Kanan, which is going to be your number 1 cards that you're going to be looking for right in the beginning. So I'm playing a Mon Mothma in the deck. Let me go ahead and slide her right there. We're just going to look at our 2-drops first. Our next 2-drop is Battlefield Marine. Now, this card is just because it's bulky and it's good. It just is synergistically not amazing with our deck, but it is a 2-resource 3/3. A great turn 1 play to apply pressure to your opponent, but more importantly, to compete for that ground lane with your opponent, where you're going to want to get your Ezra. You're not going to want to be completely behind on the ground lane on the following turn if you're dropping an Ezra. The next one we're going to play is for our 2-drops in the ground lane is going to be Sabine. Sabine has the Spectre keyword. She frequently is unattackable in this deck, and she is pretty good removal. So obviously you're going to see these cards in your normal deck if you're going to be running Sabine green in the meta aggro list. So it has a little bit of that in it. Continuing along in our ground lane, let's take a look at our 3-drops. The first thing we're going to run is Fleet Lieutenant. This is just one of the best rebel cards in the game, one of the best options that you're going to have. The ability when played to be able to, kind of cheat a little bit on your actions, be able to attack and get that +2/+0. Pretty much everything that we're playing in this deck is a rebel, including our Kanan, including our Hera, I believe, is a rebel when you flip her. She is. So including our Hera, everything is going to be able to be used by this Fleet Lieutenant, which is quite fantastic. The other 3-drop that we're going to play is the Echo-based Defender. This is just a stat block at a 3-resource 4/3 with Sentinel, another really good ground lane unit. Once again, you're going to see a lot of similarities in most rebel-based decks. And then you'll see the first difference. We're going to run 3 copies of Ezra Bridger. Now, Ezra is a 3 resource, 3/4, so statted, obviously, very well. Just the same as Echo-based Defender, just swapping 1 to health, which is good for us. We want that. He has Force, Rebel, and Spectre, so some really good keywords. So, of course, we're not going to pay that aspect penalty for him because he is coming in with Spectre. And then in addition to that, when this unit completes an attack, look at the top card of your deck, and you may play it, discard it, or leave it on top of your deck. So it allows you to dig through your deck a little bit. I like Ezra a lot. I think Ezra is just overall a really good card. And then, on top of that, you can now force throw once you have the Ezra down. Those are going to be the 3 drops that we're going to run in the ground lane. Now, as far as 4 drops are concerned, we have 2. And these are probably the most expensive cards in the deck. You're going to run 3 copies of K2SO, specifically because he's a 4 resource, 4/4 with Overwhelm, which in and of itself is a very good card. Then he also says when defeated, for each opponent, choose one, either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. And, we're continuing in this discard theme, trying to hand hate. The whole idea is that although you draw 2 in this game, especially more controlling decks really struggle to figure out what to resource, what not to. And as soon as they get done with that tough choice of what do I resource, what don't I resource, we want to hit them with a discard. We want to hit them with a force throw. We want to hit them with a spark of rebellion. We want to smack our K2SO into something. We want to keep their cards whittled down and keep their resources low and keep their options small towards the beginning of the game. K2SO allows us to add pressure, but instead we are that flexibility. We can deal that 3 damage to base if we've gotten a good aggressive start, or we can swap and say, I think I want to start removing the cards from your hand, and we can use K2SO to do that as well. Kanan Jarrus is just flat out a good card, and I have a hyperspace of him. So Kanan is a 4 resource, 4/5. On attack, you're going to flip cards from the top of your player's deck until you flip 1 for each Spectre unit you control, and then you're going to heal your base 1 for each icon on them. So if you would flip, K2SO, you're going to heal 2 because of the heroism icon and also the aggression icon. Kanan is easy to remove because he doesn't get hit easily by takedown. He gets hit easily by force choke, but he is a really good card. And he is a Force, Jedi, Rebel, and Spectre. He's got all of the stuff, so you're not going to be paying any aspect penalties for him. In that way, I very much so like Kanan, and he fits really well into this deck with the other Spectre units that you have. Moving on, we do not have anything in the 5 or the 6 realm, which is we're going to be going to other lanes and doing other things during those rounds. But at 7, we're going to be running 2 copies of Mace Windu. This gives us another force unit that we can play around with when we're trying to force throw. But I've also found Mace to be very, very good with another card that we're going to run in this deck called U-Wing Reinforcements, which I'll show you in just a moment. Finding that Mace, running that lane, I think that Mace is very good in this deck. I'm not disappointed in the power of Mace at all. A 7 resource, 5/7 is with ambush is the same thing that you're going to get with the Vader, except I can ready and then attack again. So a lot of times Mace actually removes 2 things instead of just 1, and Vader puts out 2 things. So I think Mace in this deck is actually pretty comparable to the impact that Vader has on the game inside of Iden Green, for example. The hard part is we don't have a ramp in this deck. I think that Resupply is a valuable card that you might be able to put in, but I don't have it in this deck. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the space lane, and we're going to look at the 2 resource cards in the space lane. Once again, pretty common plays here, very common just rebel strategy stuff. We're going to be running 3 copies of Green Squadron A-Wing and 3 copies of Alliance X-Wing. Just pretty solid 2 drops right in the early game. I could see you theoretically removing Alliance X-Wing. I think being able to put a little pressure in that space lane right at the beginning can be really good, so I put both of those in. Not a whole lot to be said about those 2. The next thing I did was put a Bright Hope in, because we don't have a lot of space cards, space lane cards in this deck. Bright Hope has the ability to theoretically bounce undamaged Kanan back to your hand, or bounce even a damaged Mace Windu back to your hand, but also it's just a 2/6 with Sentinel. I've been running it just because I think it's pretty good against decks that want to then force their way into the space lane and try to beat you down from there. We're going to skip the 5 drop. You'll notice really not 5 drops in this deck. We have some, and maybe I'll explain why. We're going to jump to Ghost. I'm not sold on Ghost. I think that Ghost is theoretically a good card. But in actual play, it is a 6 resource 5/5 that doesn't come into play readied. This is kind of like Hera's Fire Spray to a certain extent. It does come in with the shield, and then on play and on attack, if you have another Spectre unit, you can give a shield to them. If you have a Spectre unit down already, or if you flip your Hera and then play Ghost, you can shield your Hera and then attack with your Hera and boost your Ghost. It's pretty good for that. I'm running 3 copies. I could see an argument for running 1 or 2 of these, probably 2. And I'll explain a couple of cards that I think might fit in. The last one I'm going to play in this is Home 1. This is a big 8-drop, 7/7 with Restore 2, that when you play, you can play cards from your heroism cards from your discard pile up to a cost of 3. You're going to have a lot of those. There's going to be a lot of trading in this, so you are going to be able to go and fetch a couple of cards. Once again, this is a little bit of the Vader aspect to it in sort of searching, and then it's a big drop. All your friendly units get Restore 1, so if you're kind of on the back foot, I really like Home 1. Now, let's take a look. I only have 1 copy of Home 1, and there's only 1 in the deck. I don't know that I would run 2. Theoretically, if you had a sideboard, I might run 2. We've already looked at Force Throw inside of our events, and then we've already looked at Spark of Rebellion inside of our events. These are helping us discard cards alongside of K2SO to just keep our opponent's options really, really limited. We have 3 copies of Open Fire in the deck as well. This just allows us to deal 4 damage to a unit. It's a nice little control tool if there's something annoying that we can't get rid of, because basically this deck is going to be all board based, and if you start getting outpaced, well, it can be pretty difficult. So Open Fire to help you fight back on board occasionally. We're running a singular copy of Forced Surrender at the top end. This lets you draw 2 and makes your opponent discard 2. I found this to be useful in the case that, let's say you're playing against a control deck, you've whittled them down, and they're kind of at the point now where they don't take initiative, but they've resourced enough, and they just want to take the 2 cards, and you have them at top deck. They take those 2 cards, you open up the Forced Surrender to draw 2 and discard their 2. You literally remove their entire turn. A lot of times you're going to resource this card, but occasionally in the right situation, if you've hit enough discard stuff and you've whittled your opponent's hand down some, and they're at top deck mode and they're not resourcing anymore, this card can be very, very good. And lastly, we're running 3 copies of U-Wing Reinforcement. This is one of the more expensive cards in the deck. I really like U-Wing. Let you search the top 10 cards, play up to 7 resources worth of things from those cards, and then dump them onto the battlefield. This lets you restock. This lets you go get your Kanan and your Ezra so that you can force throw or just battle back for the board. This is going to let you dig through the top 10 cards and hit a Mace Windu a lot of times, and begin attacking in multiple times in a turn and begin fighting back for board and removing stuff. This deck does have a little bit of a hard time sort of sticking on the board. A lot of times it's just going to be competing, pushing back and forth. You're going to be lucky to get that force throw off, all those sorts of things. And so U-Wing Reinforcement's pretty good for that. A couple of honorable mentions for this deck that I think could theoretically be pretty good. Wing Leader and Red 3, I think, obviously are both very, very strong, super powerful aggression tools, and certainly could be run in this deck. And I think if I was going to run Red 3 and go with a slightly more aggressive Hera deck, I would actually probably drop the Ghosts or drop some copies of Bright Hope, and just, force a little bit more into that space lane. I think most of the rest of my cards would inevitably kind of stay in this deck. Although, I think there's certainly some aggressive tools that you could run. You could get rid of the Mon Mothmas, but I found them pretty valuable for searching for your Ezras and your Kanans, especially in the early stages of the game, or even, late game. You want to dig. This deck does a lot of digging, between your U-Wing Reinforcements, your Mon Mothmas, and then also your Home 1. Your Home 1, if I can pull that out. All of those cards together allow you to dig quite a bit. Oh, I think Home 1's already... Oh, no, not out here yet. It's in my deck somewhere. There it is, Home 1. All of those let you dig through your deck. And so that's a really fun part about this particular deck. You get to dig a lot, and then you also get to make your opponent discard a lot. Let's take a look at the full list right here really quick. Let's go. And I can just kind of show you real quickly. Obviously we just went through all of these cards, and you could take some stuff, remove some stuff. Once again, you could replace Catacombs with Tarkin Town to get that extra bit of removal. I think that could be theoretically good. In the early game, you're going to be mulliganing for you're going to want to find an Ezra and a Force Throw, probably. But you're also mulliganing just for the same stuff that you would mulligan for in a Sabine deck. So you're looking for your Battlefield Marines, your Sabine Wrens, you're looking for your A-Wings and your X-Wings, just stuff that you can get down in those lanes in the really early rounds. And then, you're looking to kind of push into mid-game and remove cards from your opponent's hand with Spark of Rebellion, Ezra or Kanan in combination with Force Throw to remove cards from your opponent's hand and also remove things from their board, K2SO to fight back on the board and remove cards from your opponent's hand. You'll notice we have a big gap in the 5-drop section here. I don't think that there's a lot of really great cards that you can run in here in 5. But I'm open to being proven wrong about that. Maybe there's a good 5-drop that we could get rid of some of the copies of Bright Hope. I think that you could certainly, once again, position this deck to be more aggressive by removing some copies of Ghost and Bright Hope and moving in for your Squadron Leader and also your Red 3. I think that those cards obviously could be very, very strong in here. You would go for a deck that's a little bit lower to the ground. And in that case, in a lot of ways, you're just now playing Sabine. You might as well be playing Sabine. But you're also getting that chance to play the Kanan and the Ezra and some of the discard tools without then going in and playing, For a Cause I Believe In or something like that. You're getting to play the Mace Windu with the U-Wing reinforcement, which is really fun. You're getting to play the home one on the top end. I really wanted to play this as a bit more of a mid-range deck. It doesn't really have a great flip turn, so you're not going to compete with this deck against a lot of things, but it is a really fun deck to play, and it's an annoying deck for your opponent to play against. I have found it to be really enjoyable just in some casual games and have had a blast with it. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you get a chance to check it out. Let me know what you think about it. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the deck, what you think I should remove. Did I totally, completely overlook something? Is there something amazing about Chopper that I'm not just seeing? All of that sort of stuff. Let me know what Hera deck you're building and what decks you're building just for fun. As always, guys, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll know when we're putting out more content. Appreciate you guys stopping by and watching the video today. Go over to our channel, check out some of the more Star Wars content. Here's some of my awful reviews. Look at some pack openings. Check out some of our Arcana and Pokemon content. We'd love to have you come and become part of the community. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.